Sure. All right. Tom Brady will be wearing number 12 and white, choosing to wear white because he's 4-1 in the white jerseys during his time in the NFL, playing in Super Bowls against the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's get into some of the news that's popped up this week. And let's start with Bruce Arians and Tom Brady both talking this week about what ended up being the most impactful move of the 2020 offseason, getting Tom Brady from New England to Tampa Bay. Here they are.
You can't hit a home run if you're going to swing for one. You can't do anything special in life sitting on a fence. And, the question back then was if there was a quarterback that was a free agent, who would you want? And of course it was Tom Brady, but not thinking he'd become a free agent. But once he did, it was a pursuit that we wanted to make and knew he had some interest. So, but again, if that's how you live life, I don't know, you sit and live in a closet and try to be safe, or you go have some damn fun.
I'd like to think that I wasn't that much of a chance after a lot of years.
Yeah, but still, 43, it is a little bit of a chance. It is a little bit of a risk, but Bruce Arians, no risk it, no biscuit. He risked it, and they got the biscuit to the Super Bowl. Now, and that mentality, Peter, I think will serve them well in the Super Bowl, because I think anytime you're an underdog in a postseason game, you have to be willing to do that thing that disrupts the predetermined thought as to who the better team is. You got to be willing to throw the ball to the end zone at the end of the first half. You got to be willing to do the onside kick back when onside kicks were actually recoverable at the start of the second half of Super Bowl 44. Those are the things you need to be willing to do. And I don't know that Bruce Arians' mentality actually is going to get him to a Super Bowl very often. This is his first one. But I think the mentality is perfect for a Super Bowl when you're the coach of the team that's favored to lose.
Mike, one of the things I really like about the Bucs personnel acquisition, and look, it's all been about Brady, but let me make two other interesting points about where the Bucs are right now. One is that assuming that everyone's healthy in the secondary, and you can't assume that because of Antoine Winfield Jr., obviously, but if everyone is healthy in the secondary, their top 6 defensive backs, that they will play on the field together in this Super Bowl at times, okay? The top 6 defensive backs, all 24 or younger. Wow. Every one of them has come in the last 3 drafts. Tremendous credit to Jason Light and his staff. And let's talk about the guy who Tom Brady has looked for in huge moments in the last 2 playoff games. Tyler Johnson. Not Mike Evans, not Cameron Brate, not Gronk. Tyler Johnson, you know who he is? He's a 5th-round draft choice from Minnesota who last year at the bowl game, whichever it's called, the Poulon Weed Eater Cigar Bowl or whatever it is that they hold in Tampa at Raymond James Stadium, Minnesota played. And Bruce Arians went to the game, sat in one box with his family. Jason Light went to the game, sat in another box with his family. And this guy, Tyler Johnson's making plays all over the place. And Arians said at one point, after he made a great catch, he knocks on the window and he says to Light, he goes, "We got to get that guy." And come draft day this year, they were pushing, because there was such an incredible crop of running backs or of wide receivers this year, Mike. He slipped all the way to the 5th round. They take him. Who is Tom Brady throwing the ball to when it's most important on that play inside the 2-minute warning against Green Bay, where Tyler Johnson gets his jersey pulled and gets the interference? Imagine being trusted by Tom Brady in the most important play of your season, and you were a 5th-round pick in the draft. That is what I applaud the Bucs for. It's a no risk it, no biscuit thing. If you love a guy in the draft, take him, and then you know what? Play him.
Yeah, and he made a key 3rd down catch against the Saints on a 3rd and 11 play, the twisting, lunging, diving catch.
How he caught that ball, I'll never know.
Unbelievable, and made a key 3rd down catch earlier in the game against the Packers before that interference penalty. Let me just say this. I have been known to enjoy a fine cigar. I like a Monte Cristo, a Partagas, Cohiba. I would never smoke the Pullin Weed Eater cigar. I don't want a Pullin Weed Eater cigar. They can sponsor all the bowl games they want. Forget it. It ain't working. I ain't buying a Pullin Weed Eater cigar. But you know that and we talk about Executive of the Year and PFT for what it matters, and it doesn't at all. We made Brandon Beane, the Bills GM, our Executive of the Year. But I'll tell you what, you can make the argument that Jason Light deserves that consideration. Not that he had to go out and scout and craft and recruit Tom Brady. I think Tom Brady, even though you get the idea, or at least they try to make the case that he had to sell them. Come on. He's Tom Brady.
Yeah.
But to have the pieces there that makes the team attractive to Tom Brady is on Light. If you don't have the pieces that they've accumulated over the past 6 or 7 years, Tom Brady's going somewhere else. He's not going to Tampa Bay.
Yeah, totally agree, Mike. And I think the other thing about the whole Brady situation in Tampa, he had done his research. He knew. As Jason Light told me on this podcast this week, Tom Brady said to him in the middle of their conversation, listen, Jason, there are, and I don't know the number, but there's 24,952 hours between now and our opening game of the season. We have to make those count. Every minute counts. And so, you know, when Brady is talking like that to you, Brady wants to come. And that, to me, says so much about the team that Jason Light and, to some degree, Bruce Arians built with a really good personnel staff.
And it was obvious from the get-go that they were going to pursue him. Bruce Arians was talking openly about it at the scouting combine. Tampering rules be damned, and there was never any consequence for it, so what the hell? Tamper away if they're not going to do anything to you, and it worked out extremely well. And the Buccaneers desperately want Brady to be back next year. And I'll tell you what, Peter, I'm not ready to assume that Brady stops in 2022, the year he turns 45. The way he looks right now, there's no slippage. And maybe he's just going to fall off a cliff at some point. But if he's still playing like he is now in 2022, I think that 2023 and 2024 become in play. And, hell, he may make a run at playing until he's 50.
You know, Mike, here's a guy who, you know, we probably have talked about this once or twice over the years, but, you know, one of my vivid memories is once after the Super Bowl against Atlanta of going to interview him. It was quite a day. I went up to Montana and talked to him where he was starting his off-season vacation. 7 days earlier, he had just beaten Atlanta and made that huge comeback. And in the course of the conversation, I said to him, don't you ever feel like just going out and having like 9 beers with your buddies? And he said, you know, I've done that before. And I can do it again one day too. But right now, this is a lot more fun than that. And, you know, I don't want to do anything to prevent me from being able to do this. And so I think that has been his ethos over the years. And for anybody who has kind of made fun of him for his diet and the electrolytes and all this, I just say, hey, you know what? To each his own. He's not hurting anybody. You know, let the guy do what he wants. If this is what he believes, it's great. Because Tom Brady, you know, he said to me when he was 26 years old, he woke up every day and, you know, he had to almost unfold himself to get him out of bed. He was always in pain. And he said, man, I love football and I'm going to keep playing, but I don't know how long I can deal with this kind of pain. And then he has gotten into the whole pliability thing and all that. But I think he is a guy who has figured out what, you know, the number one thing is to him in life. Whatever it is, he's figured out what the most important thing is, and he does it. So, you know, to me, all the power to him.
And I think the longer he goes, the harder it will be to stop. So you keep going as long as you can. And you say he's not hurting anyone. He's not. But he could get himself hurt. That's the key. And that's why we see in these moments when Darnell Savage, for example, breaks free on a safety blitz and Tom Brady doesn't want to take that clean hit that could injure his 43-year-old body, so he fires the ball up for grabs and Jair Alexander catches it. That's part of what you have to accept if Tom Brady's going to be your quarterback now. We've seen it the past few years. That bailout, throw the ball. I'm not going to take that square hit from Frank Clark, for example, or some other defensive lineman. I'm not going to do it. I'll just throw the ball, and if someone intercepts it, hey, so be it. It's kind of like a short punt.
But also, Mike, you remember Peyton Manning late in his career? he would do what I would call the fetal sack. You know, when he felt the pressure coming in on him, he'd just go down and just take a nap. And I think Brady does that too. He doesn't do it probably as often as Manning used to do it, but he does it too. And he knows that if he's going to make that throw, the one that Jair Alexander, the semi-Hail Mary downfield, if he's going to make that throw, he's got to make it so that his guy gets it or nobody gets it or it's out of bounds. You know, and obviously he short-armed that one. But I agree with you. Those are the things that you're going to have to live with a few of them. And honestly, if he delivers like he did throwing the ball 48 yards in the air with seconds left in the first half and Scotty Miller gets by Kevin King, I think that's a pretty nice trade-off.
And we go from one quarterback who has very limited mobility, especially at his age, to a 25-year-old who is the slipperiest, not the fastest, not the most agile, not the most explosive, but he's the guy you can't get your hands on. The 49ers tried to do it last year in the Super Bowl. Many thought they would succeed. They didn't. Robert Saleh, who was the defensive coordinator of the 49ers last year, now the head coach of the Jets, was with Sims and me earlier this week, and we asked him, what advice would you have for those Tampa Bay Buccaneers defensive linemen? Here's Saleh from earlier in the week.
Anytime you're a pass rusher, just understand that he might do his little old man jog in between plays where it looks like his feet hurt, but don't kid yourself. I mean, he's got tremendous mobility, and his arm strength is ridiculous. You have to be relentless all the way through.
That line made me laugh. It made someone else laugh, too. It made Patrick Mahomes laugh. He retweeted.
I saw that on Twitter. He responded.
With the multiple, there it is. When you get 6 of the laughing, crying emojis, you have made someone laugh till they cry. And, it's the truth, though. It's kind of like somebody pointed out, it's kind of a baseball thing, like how someone shuffles around in the infield, between batters or something like that. Like it just... there's never really an occasion on the baseball field to run when you're an infielder, except when you've hit the ball. But it's just kind of that I don't know if it's a little rope-a-dope quality, but he does move like that between plays. But when it's time to elude and evade defenders, he does it as well as anyone in the NFL, Peter.
Mike, you know what I really like about Mahomes at this stage of his career? Number one, he realizes that he can do things like on social media and in the outside world and in interviews, and he can show that side of himself. When's the first time you realized about Tom Brady and he gives his birth date, the day he was born? And so Mahomes has fun with this stuff. He had fun with Rich Eisen on his TV show about his nickname and all that stuff. And not only that, but I think he knows right now that, so many quarterbacks over time have been so incredibly careful in press conferences, and he's not afraid to drop a line in a press conference that might work or it might fall flat. But whatever, we're not talking about nuclear physics here. We're just talking about a game. And the other part of him right now that I really like, he's playing in all of these big games. All of them. He's only 25 years old. And, whereas Josh Allen, you get the impression that Josh Allen sort of, I don't want to say spit the bit, but that was a huge moment for Josh Allen from Wyoming via Buffalo, to be on that mega stage this early in his career. And Josh Allen will be back, and he'll be really, really good. But when you get on that stage, It's hard. But now Mahomes has been on that stage so often and played so well that to him, it's just another game. And to Brady, I'm not saying just another game. That makes it sound flip. But he's going to perform like he would in an October game against the Jets. Both of these guys are. That is what a quarterback needs to do in big games. Perform like it's any other game.
And look, Peter, I'm convinced that one of the reasons why the Chiefs struggle, or at least are perceived as struggling in the regular season, the adrenaline rush isn't the same. The stakes aren't the same. They have grown addicted to that feeling of playoff football, and that's where we see them rise to a higher level. And it becomes easy to take Patrick Mahomes and other Chiefs players for granted during the season. They still played incredibly well. They won 14 out of 15 games that they were trying to win, but they don't have it as easily. They just smothered the Bills. I mean, I expected it would be an exciting game, and maybe Josh Allen is going to show he's on Patrick Mahomes' level. And the moment that the Chiefs took the lead in that game, Sims and I talked about this earlier in the week. Like, it's done. It's over. It's just a detail as to what the final score is at this point.
Mike, you know what? I was thinking about this watching that game. Well, you know how at least I was kind of making a big deal of this team was not playing well on offense at the end of the year at all. That game against Atlanta was a nightmare. Then they sat for 20 days. And I'm wagging my finger at Andy Reid like, hey, Andy, I know more football than you do. You shouldn't be resting these guys. And then all of a sudden they come out and they look like the 27 Yankees. So I really feel like, to me, it's something that Andy Reid really knows his team. He knows his quarterback, and he did the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of those regular season games was a win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Week 12. The last time the Buccaneers lost, they had their bye Week 13. They finished the regular season 4-0. They've won 3 road games in the postseason. So from 7-5 to 7-0, how much does the game where the Chiefs raced out to a 17-0 lead over the Buccaneers, how much does that matter when they get together again in the Super Bowl?
I think it really helps to have a veteran flatline coach, like Todd Bowles, to basically, you've got the psyche, Mike. You've just had Tyreek Hill catch balls for 269 yards. He has just totally run roughshod over your defense. And so, and you've got a defense, a secondary, all 6 guys who play a lot are 24 and younger. So Todd Bowles came in the next day and he just, very, very, flatline, said to him, listen, he said, that game is 1 out of 16. We're going to watch the tape. We're going to go over it. And then at the end, we're going to move on to the next one. He said, just don't make a big deal of it because it's not a big deal. We had 2 horrible plays in coverage. We got to get them fixed. We will get them fixed. I'm not concerned. Don't be concerned. And so when your coach is basically not coming in, ranting, raving, throwing stuff against the wall, and he just comes in and he says, hey, it's not good enough, but we are better than that. I know we are, and we'll fix it. That is how Todd Bowles treated that game. I don't know how they'll react, Mike, because it's easy. It's the classic old Mike Tyson. Hey, you can talk a good game until you get punched in the mouth. And that is the way we're going to be looking at the Bucs secondary on Super Sunday. Have they learned their lessons and have they adjusted from when they first played this team? That is going to tell the tale of this game.
And the final score of that game was 27-24. The Buccaneers did wake up. They were notorious for much of the regular season for spotting teams' big leads, sometimes coming back, sometimes not coming back. But, one thing we've seen from Tampa Bay the past 2 weeks of the postseason, they beat a Saints team that had swept Tampa Bay, including a 38-3 shellacking in primetime in Week 9 on Sunday Night Football. And then when they faced the Packers, a team they had blown out 38-10. That was a much different game, although at one point it was 28-10. But these games are snowflakes. They're all different. And when you start it over again and you change the circumstances and you make it single elimination, and in this case, you make it for a Super Bowl trophy, that changes everything. And you're going to have a lot of risk it and biscuit, at least attempting, by Bruce Arians and company. I really do think as we get closer and closer to the game and we reflect on the things the Buccaneers have done, they're going to have not tricks up their sleeve per se. They're just going to have that attitude of we're going to go for it. Fourth down, we're going to go for it. Field goal, the hell with it. Touchdown. You know, they're going to have that mentality because they've gotten to this point with that edge and that willingness to take risks. As Bruce Arians said, the clip we played at the top of the segment, you got to be willing to swing for the fences if you're going to hit a home run.
Mike, you know what occurs to me as you watch Tampa as the season goes on? I think we talked about it a couple of weeks ago, you know, when I was talking about in that Super Bowl against Atlanta, you know, at the end of the game, it's Chris Hogan and Malcolm Mitchell, who Tom Brady is going to. And I'm thinking to myself, how in the world are you on the same page with these guys in their first year and all that? And Brady says 122 practices. And to not, you know, because we've talked about this before, but in my opinion, Tom Brady, if he's got talent, okay, that's why you see that beautiful rainbow arcing throw to Scotty Miller right in his hands in the end zone over Kevin King. That's why you see the beautiful high arcing throw to Mike Evans early in the game for the touchdown in the end zone. You know, that's right over the Packer corner's outstretched arms. It's because Tom Brady has to practice. He has to get in his reps. He simply must. And when he does, you get to the end of the season, you see things like what he did in the Kansas City championship game 2-3 years ago, when he kept finding Gronk down the seam in beautiful throws. Why? He's practiced with Gronk 1,000 times. They've done that 1,000 times. So I think this is really the time late in the year why I think Brady's going to be dangerous in this game. And, hey, Mahomes is always dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, we are at the point where Tom Brady is essentially into his second season with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You know, we talk about rookies. By the time a rookie gets to the playoffs, they're not rookies anymore. We talked about Tyler Johnson, how Brady trusts him, how Brady trusts Scotty Miller. You think about these weapons. I mean, what a difference. You know, fortunately, this week hasn't been as consumed with the whole Patriots comparison talk because Brady has punched through to the Super Bowl. But I don't know that the Patriots make the playoffs even if Brady stays, because you look at this murderer's row of pass catchers that he has available to him. He's never had anything like that at any point in his career. And now he's got that, whether it's 122 practices or whatever the number is because of the pandemic, he's got that full experience with all of them. They know him. He knows them. They know the offense inside and out. He's got a couple of great running backs in Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones. And, Tom Brady couldn't have landed in a better spot to get him where he is, short of maybe going to the Chiefs if for some reason they wouldn't have had access to Patrick Mahomes this year.
You know, Mike, one other thing. You know, I kept thinking, and I kind of felt bad for Cam Newton this year because, look, he looked like he was physically diminished, but you didn't really know because of the people he had around him. And I bet Cam Newton the entire year said all the right things and said, I got to be better. And, you know, good for him. That's what a competitor should say. But anyway, excuse me. Cam Newton, when I am watching him play, I'm thinking he's got to go home and drive away from the stadium tonight thinking, man, I know exactly what Tom Brady felt like last year at the end of the year. He simply didn't have NFL caliber playoff weapons. Period. End of story. All this stuff about, is it Brady? Is it Belichick? I just don't know who you put at quarterback, you know, from like December of last year till January 1 of this year with the Patriots who's really going to play well. The reason that they're under 500, over their last 18, 20 games is because they have not stocked the pantry with contributing good skill players on that team.
Well, and they've got plenty of work to do to get back to where they've been because they need the quarterback, they need the skill players, they need a lot of things in New England, and they get to watch what happens when Tom Brady lands in a spot where they have everything that Brady needed, including a surprisingly potent defense, which has been the difference. When Brady had his meltdown on Sunday with the 3 interceptions, the defense stiffened and forced a pair of 3-and-outs when the door was wide open for the Packers to take over that game and possibly win it going away. I mean, think about that, Peter. Three straight drives with interceptions from Tom Brady. If the Packers had won that game, can you imagine what the storylines coming out of that would have been? It's almost like it never happened because the Buccaneers won the game. The defense is the key. Devin White is one of the keys. Antoine Winfield Jr., if he can play. JPP, Shaq Barrett, and Ndamukong Suh. Levante David, let's not forget him. Sean Murphy-Bunting, who's had an interception every game. I don't think Brady expected to land on a team with a defense that is almost as good as the defenses he enjoyed when he was with New England.
Here's the amazing thing about this game against the Packers, in my opinion, Mike. So, we can look at the last 3 offensive plays for Green Bay that go incomplete. But on 3rd and 8, obviously Aaron Rodgers very badly wants to get the ball to Davante Adams. And to me, he made a foolish throw because really he didn't have anybody open in that secondary. That's how well Tampa was playing. But the point I'm going to make is, and the reason why Jason Light really needs to get a lot of credit for this team and his personnel staff, it's not just him, but why they deserve a lot of credit. Look at the replay on the last play of the game for Green Bay, the last offensive play. Rodgers goes out of the pocket. He's looking, and finally, almost out of desperation, he throws almost a ground ball to Davante Adams at the goal line. He was bracketed by 2 backup safeties, Edwards and Adams, who in the regular season, had basically played a total of less than 200 snaps. And so to me, that says that 1-53, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have built the kind of team that should be able to be good for quite a while, Brady or not. But it's also the team that Brady's going to want to stay with for a while, I would think.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.